Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Roundtable, a live talk show with the ceremonialist circle from the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, where we discuss pivotal topics about our community, spirituality, and goddess. Here we are live, so let's have a round of applause for us here. So please do welcome Mariam Brigantia. Say hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Katinka Soutens.
Hello, darlings. Lovely to be here.
Caroline Stevens.
Hi.
And Stephanie Ellison Shooter.
Hello.
So the topic today, it's Super Priestess. How far can we extend our area of expertise without being a jack of all trades and master of none? Before we start, I would love to thank everybody who's connecting through Facebook. This is a Facebook Live, and also everybody who will be listening on our podcast and or through YouTube. Thank you again for all the following and all the questions that you sent in. This is live, so if you're following us on Facebook, you can absolutely comment, and we'll see the comment and post it right away to integrate that into our discussion. So, when do we become super priestesses? When do we go out of our expertise area? When do we start this process of becoming jack of all trades and master of none? Is that a perception? Is that a real fact? Has it to do something with our training? So the way we evolve as priestesses, how does that work? The first one on the table, the word goes to Mariam Brigantia.
Hi. Well, it's interesting that you give both sides of the story immediately. Like, are you a super priestess or priest, actually, of the goddess, when you are very specialized, or are you a super priestess when you are very broadly orientated? I mean, that's also something to think, is which of the two makes you a super priestess, if anything. I don't like the term super priestess or high priestess or anything like that. So for me, it's really about the devotion, and I think the devotion to goddess can be specialized. As you can see behind me, my whole room is Bridget. So my specialization, if you can so call it like that, I would say my main devotion to goddess is to Bridget, or Bride, or Brigantia, or any form of her. But I also have devotion to other goddesses, and I can see them here. They're all on the shelf here. But it's like, I am specialized. Most of my energy and most of my work is about Bridget or Bridget Brigantia. But I also have other things. Tomorrow, for instance, I'm offering a workshop about Mary Magdalene. So, so it's for me, it's a bit of both. And for me, it's more about to be true to your path and to your own devotion, and to really be able to connect, not just say, oh, I know a little bit of this and I know a little bit of that, but it really comes from me, comes from my heart. I don't know if that makes me a super priestess, but so for me, that would be the way in.
Mariam, have you ever felt in a position where you were, I'm being really direct here, have you ever felt in a position as a priestess where something was demanded of you, and or you were asked some services and you accepted, though that was not exactly your area of expertise? Did you ever feel out of place but trying anyway to deliver that? And where did you get that strength from? Was that from improvisation, or for your deep culture that actually goes much broader than what is your specialization?
I think all the work that I do, like especially workshops and things like that, have always come from me. I haven't done things that are asked of me in a workshop. But yes, for instance, in a hand fasting, I've been asked to call in deities, goddesses and gods that I don't really know well. And I do that then in service to the couple who is getting married. So I do research and I feel into myself how I would relate to them when I call them in. But for me, that is more to do with there's people coming to me and they're asking me, and I think that's respectful then to include their deities. I think it's very important. I've also said no to things, and that's more out of principle. I thought, no, that's not, I can't really relate to that at all. And so I've said, no, I can't do that. You have to find somebody else to do that.
Yes, or things that you're asked to do sometimes that are really not your field. You know, I don't know, a cord cutting ceremony, shamanic journey or something, which is not my personal field of expertise or something I particularly feel I can authentically do. I could bodge it together as a priestess with many skills, but I actually really like referring when we could ask something like that, referring to someone who I know really works in that particular way or in that particular field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that opportunity to signpost to people, to have that network of people that we trust and that who specialisms that we're aware of, to be able to signpost people rather than trying to do something to respect the person that's asking, but also knowing that you're not necessarily, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be giving the best experience to that person. So in service to them, the best thing that I could do for them would be to signpost them on to somebody that would do it much, much better than I would, because that was their area of expertise. I think for me, when I looked at the topic, I was really interested because I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn and I love to expand my own knowledge. But I think there is that fine line and that threshold between expanding it for my own self-development and then trying to claim to be something that I'm not, to suddenly try to claim that I'm an expert in an area that I've just learned about. And that for me resonated when I read the topic. I thought I still would, you know, I still am very passionate about growth. And I think when you're on a priestess path, there is always that element of self-development and growth, but it is that fine line between growing yourself and then in time becoming an expert in a new field. But that takes time and experience, and to live it, doesn't it? You've got to, for me, it's about living that path as well. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's so easy to watch everybody around you. You know, I'm also I love to learn. I have so many different themes that I love to explore. But there's also so much out there. And I think as a priestess, it's really about listening to your own inner voice of what your soul purpose is, and to really go with that and not be distracted about what is on the outside. And I think because there's just so much out there that we can get distracted really easily and then start you know, doing like 20 million different things or wanting to do them all at the same time. But I do trust in Goddess that she brings us back to that path that we are supposed to be on. And it can happen, and that bringing us back to that soul path can happen very many different ways. Like we probably all know. But really being completely honest to yourself and finding your priestess purpose, your soul mission to do, and that what brings you complete joy, and not get distracted about everything on the outside, because there is so much and the knowledge is here, but then just to really be focused on what brings me joy and what is my soul purpose, what is it that my gift that I have to bring forth.
I just realized something as well, that, you know, there are different strands of working as a priestess. So for me, when it comes to my teachings, I am mostly focused on Bridget. And like you said, Stephanie, it's really become because she's in my heart, and really from the very beginning that I started my priestess journey, which is actually this year 20 years ago. So I've been journeying with her really intensely for a long time. But then when I, for instance, do my tours, there's a different energy. I mean, there are people who are specific for Bridget tours, but most of the tours that I do here are focused on Avalon. So there is a different focus, what I then offer, which has also become my expertise, because I've been walking the land here for as long as I live here, which is 15 years. So, there's different ways of working. And I think the thing that I like so much about the Goddess Conference is that we are challenged to step out of that comfort zone. I mean, I have been in my comfort zone for 2 years, I think now, for working with Bridget. But I also like that you work with a goddess that you actually don't know, and you get to know. And really, sometimes it's fine for that year, or sometimes it really goes deeper, and you get a really personal devotion and connection with that goddess. So yeah, I think there's in different strands of work, there's different ways of coming into this topic.
I think
yes, I wanted to bring in that this piece really that you already speaking into, Marion, of how we don't really learn or grow without sometimes being challenged and stepping into something new, doing something new, even if we haven't trained in it specifically. And the Goddess Conference is a very, very good example of that, because we have such a circle of expertise, really, that we're working with. And so ceremonially, you are held in the weaving of all those skills and authentically held paths, because I think there's something about that duality where you have to try new things sometimes and just leap in and do it and trust yourself. And then there is trainings and many years of practice and many years of teaching, or many years of really, really walking with a particular goddess or a particular healing path that brings an authenticness to what you can bring, and from there out open up into different forms of it, which is slightly different to the kind of almost manic rebranding you can see going on there, where there is such pressure in our lives, and I think there's such an element of competition out there, which is a real pressure, a real financial pressure for so many of us. Never mind what kind of wounding is underneath that. That is actually really much part of the field out there in the realness of all our experiences of bringing our work specifically. So it is an edge place. That's the tension, I think, in this question that you came up with so well, Andrea. Yeah. So for me, there is two sides to this.
You're very, all of you. So hi, Lily. And hi, Maria Elena from Florida. Hi, everyone who's joining us. You have been absolutely like honey in this past minutes. Lovely, kind. I love this topic, and I love the way you embraced it with the warmest and kindest of hearts. Point is, tricky questions here.
Let's challenge us.
When we get to the sales, that is where the things, the pan starts frying things. So when it comes to selling services, and priestesses, contemporary priestesses do that. I mean, you don't live in long distance islands in the mists, living out of thin air and magic, but you do offer your services. And we have brilliant examples here. Maybe you're not the best examples, because each one of you actually is very specific in what they do. I mean, I look at Caroline and the way she is, very into the hypnotherapy, but also came up with the crystals. But she took all her time, and she's very meticulous the way she explains what she does in a way that it's very specific. And I really appreciate that. Stephanie, she has a center where she creates and hones her own way of offering things, and that's very specific as well. Marion, I mean, your image speaks for yourself. I mean, read it everywhere, and you're very, very specific. Katinka as well. You offer many different services, though your focus is like unique, and it's kind of a brand on its own. So you're all very specific, but all of you, I think, are assisting to a growing community of people who actually wear a mask one day, a mask another, and there is this sensation, this grabby feeling where everything becomes salesy at some point, and there is no return from that. And there are 2 points that I would love you to get into. The first one is, how is that diminishing in a way the power of the priestess? So teaching without having the actual lived and embodied expertise. And the second question is, do we tend, which is the opposite, do we tend to the to the specific priestess because we're still really afraid that what we do and what we feel, it's not enough unless we brand ourselves as the sexual priestess or the holy priestess without the ability of being both of them? Discuss.
Yeah, really good point. I'm glad you brought that edge place really into focus with what you're saying there. I think first thing I really want to say, and this is a heart's feeling for me, is that people are drawn to the teachers that they need to work with. That's when we're talking about our services. And I think that the expertise that people like ourselves in this group, who have worked for a very long time, honing our specific skills, keeping growing, but also having this background of actually lived reality, is often undervalued or not seen. Yep. So personally, I'm not so into the whole marketing thing, and other people are fantastic at that. And some of the people who are fantastic at it really have an enormous depth of experience and skill, and other people not so much. So I think people need to be drawn to the depth of something that they're seeking. And I can actually in my own work only go deep. I'm not interested in surface skating over things, really. I want to do the deeper work. And so that is my joy place as well in what we're bringing. Not to advertise it as all deep, thing, the superior deep or whatever, but really more that it's not for everybody. People might not be ready for that or just not want it. There's no judgment in that. So that there's a lot of choice on the one hand is great, and on the other hand is not so great. Because how do we remain visible in a field that is increasingly full with very flashy in your face out there messaging, and that do undermine, particularly if you have things that are like, say there's something online and it's like whatever and it costs £20, well, that undermines the other offerings of people who are actually perhaps having to rent venues, or who are just sitting on a different form of bringing the work, So, and if it's similar, which a lot of it is now, how do you create the unique voice of your product? I mean, this is a marketing issue, really. It's not necessarily specific for priestessing as such at all. So yeah, this is a big topic, really. I think for me personally, it can be so disheartening, and I really want to own how depressing it can be and how hard, And what guides me is the places where the joy really is, and to just be in that. If you are going to have to watch what everybody else is doing so that you can do it in a particular way that outsmarts whatever, for me, that's a waste of my life force. So yeah, that's my answer on that question. What about you girls?
I completely agree. It's this edge place of wanting to present yourself or present myself and be available and show off with what I'm doing, takes away, for me personally, very often what I'm doing. So for example, one of my loves and part of my path is I just like to be out on the land in my welly boots, connecting. But then and I thought, right, I'll try reels and be that kind of person. And then that takes away the joy of being out on the land.
Yeah.
Totally.
True.
Completely. So,
True.
And Marion, with your walks and your tours that you do, the knowledge that you have that you put into your tours. But again, as Katinka says, it completely is a marketing thing, isn't it? Because there may well be offerings that are so showy and out there on social media that that do all the right things for the algorithms. But it may well be that they don't have the content that somebody that is out on the land actually doing it doesn't, they don't get the hits or whatever the lingo is. So it is that although we're kind of talking about social media, not necessarily a super priestess, it's part of being a super priestess now is actually knowing how to deal with algorithms and getting yourself seen to be the expert that you are. And that is another part of the challenge of being a priestess, I think, is how do you do that and still maintain that authenticity, which is, I don't know the answer to that one.
It's an interesting one because, you know, it's how enticed do you get to play that game? For me, it's really a game. And this is a true story. It sounds a bit like airy fairy, but it is really true. When I just started, and this is another thing, you know, when are you the experienced priestess? Because everybody has to start somewhere, of course.
Absolutely.
So when I just started as a priestess, as a self-employed priestess, because I had a lot of little safety nets first, like little jobs and a little job here that just paid my rent. And then at one point I made a jump. I was about 5-6 years in that I worked. And then I made a jump and really just was a full-time priestess. And I got really drawn into this edge place of like, can I make my living from this? And that kind of thing. And how do I present myself? I'm not very good at that selling thing and all that. And I literally got this message, and I don't have this very often, like, you know, this. But she was asking me, and Bridget was asking me, okay, who do you serve? Do you serve me, or do you serve money? And I was like, you know, I'm not going to swear. But it was really like that. I'm like, oh, wait, yes. And every time I spin into this like marketing, and I have to sell myself and I have to put myself out there. I'm like, no, I call myself back. Of course, you do. You have to put yourself out there. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, but I'm not going to be led by that. I'm going to be led by my devotion to her and trust. And it's not easy all the time, but I don't want to be drawn into this marketing game that is not real for me. I mean, for some people it might be very real and very easy, and it's just in their nature, but it's not in my nature. So it's like, you know, I can do the necessary and be. I think that it has to do a lot with authenticity. I think if you're authentic in what you're putting out, and you're real, you're not, you know, promising miracles or whatever, but you're real, then I think people will find you. Like you said, Katinka, they come to the teacher. So it's a lot about trust for me.
I mean, a lot has changed. I mean, since the big C, we've all noticed it, especially being self-employed, but also not self-employed. A lot of companies and a lot of people have noticed that so much has changed since COVID. I mean, my company has definitely changed. I've been self-employed since I'm 25. And so it's been quite some time now. And but what I notice is working in service with Goddess is that she put me in like these 7-year cycles all the time. And it's so special that every time I know that something big has to change, I feel those edgy places that just don't feel right anymore. And it gets tight and it just feels, ugh. And that's when I start getting really annoyed also in my work. And that I know that something has to change and that she wants me to shift deeper in my work. And so that for me is going completely with that path of authenticity and what I feel, and especially also with all the things that I've experienced on my path. I use all those things. So that's what I bring into my trainings as well, is things that I've learned through my own personal experience. And I think just being really authentic with your soul and just going with that. And I always say, I'm not a techie. Oh my gosh, I'm so not a techie. That's I'm really bad at this stuff. But just really asking myself always what brings me joy and going completely with that. And I do not want to change, you know, some things I do have to change to become, you know, but I don't want to I want to be true to myself and how the way that I like to teach, or the way that I feel, you know, what goddess wants me to do, and not what is expected from me on the outside or how everybody else is doing. And I think that is the big challenge, to just like you said, just really stay completely true to yourself in what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Stephanie. I think that for me, it's an impossibility. I cannot actually rebrand myself and what I do. Doesn't mean that I can't offer different courses or something new or whatever, but I can't rebrand me, because it would go completely against what I actually live.
Exactly.
You know, it's like I'm not I don't want to be in pretense. It's one of the things I got very allergic to in the relationship field in my life, you know, the pretense stuff. So that would be completely counter to my own commitments to myself, but also to my vows to goddess. So that's not going to happen, you know. For me, it's not even so much about which goddess or which form of the deities, but that, you know, in myself. Also, what I really liked you saying is this place of where, if we stay authentic and we are in a supportive group of cooperation, where we're not playing the competition game with each other, so that you can sell each other, really, that works so beautifully. And I genuinely value all the offerings that my supportive sister circle of equals in the Goddess Conference offers, you know, and it's not just women in there, there are also men in there, but it's like, for me, there is something around, I really trust these people to be the experts in their fields. And one of the people who is not here with us today, but 𝘕𝗓𝗓𝗏, she's, for me, a very good example to be reminded, yes, promote the stuff that you value, of people you value, because she's very good at that, at doing that. And I think this is something where we can touch that place of tension in ourselves around, oh, I have to come up with a new thing, I have to redress it, or, you know, how am I going to ever stand out in the crowd of all these new young people doing it all with so much energy and blah, 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 all that, you know, that's going on in the background.
And I think that is going to bring the change, the big change of, if everybody chips in with their uniqueness, that is what leads us to the oneness in the end, anyway.
Yeah, there is a good insight from Chris Forrester. Thank you for joining us, Chris, today. So he says, the challenge is that the depth of the path that you love and the skills and blessings which allow you to priestess and heal is a different mindset, skill set from growing visibility. So an inauthentic priestess who is great at marketing can be more successful, in brackets, than an authentic one in terms of money. How can you step up to this challenge? That's a good point.
Yes,
and that's also
very good question. And I think that there are also authentic priestesses who are very successful at the marketing. I think that they're not necessarily in opposition always.
No. But that's true, and that's part of the question that the super priestesses, want answered. So it's a pivotal time right now where what Chris just said truly may happen. So there might be very young priestesses offering trainings that could be good and coming from places of true experience, or not, just based on the fact that they master marketing really well. And so again, we go back to the word priestess. Why is it called super priestess? Because in priestess we have a word that has been heavily reclaimed, brought out from time and space and burnings and trials. And it has been a work of art, to recreate this word in the current contemporary world. So right now, is that word endangered by this, overpopulation, overspreading of everybody doing everything? Because again, you've been really kind with what you said, but what really happens is that, jack of all trades and masters of none do exist, and we can see them in our feeds on social media every day. We have people who attend, and now have been, very specific again. You have had people who have attended your trainings or centers or blah, blah, blah. And like 2 days after having attended that, they started a parallel training, that not a temple, not an experience, but a training very like yours to become you, basically. And that is the point where we ask ourselves, as a person really honed the thing that I built a life on, or is this just some marketing gimmick? And so the word priestess gets, devoured by this marketing thing.
So it's interesting because I know this thing that my sister, who is a speech therapist, it's what they fought a lot to get their profession protected. And I really feel that this is kind of the question going to. It's like, is priestess a protected profession? Is that going to be? Is that something that we're going to, or how can you just declare yourself a priestess? And I think at the moment, yes, everybody can declare themselves a priestess, and a lot of people who have been on a spiritual path for a long time, who haven't necessarily done a priestess training, are authentically priestesses. So it is. I think it is on what you're talking about. Is like, okay, so should it be a protected profession? Is that something that we have to go to in the future, or is that something that we really want to stay far away from because it's very patriarchal? So it's, I think that's kind of edge plays in there.
I think the point is, and exactly what Katinka was saying, along with both Caroline and Stephanie, actually, authenticity. We think that priestess you can be a priestess, but the point is that, is priestess always a teacher? Can a priestess always be a teacher, always be a healer, always be a womb healer if she trained for 3 weeks? That's the point. So I agree that you can be a priestess, but my question to you is, are we creating a larger worldwide community where more and more people are taking the word priestess and becoming healers, teachers, way before the experience is there to support that?
Well, you initiate as a priestess, of course, and then it's like, what are you going to do with it? And I think all the trainings that we are giving is actually saying, well, you don't have to be a priestess, you don't have to be a ceremonialist. In the Bridget training, I've had a lot of people who are nurses, because it comes through the healing coming in. And there are beautiful ways that you could be priestess as a nurse. And even when I still worked as a lawyer, I brought my priestess work in the way I worked with people I met in my work. So priestess doesn't necessarily need to be teacher or ceremonialist, or you can be a priestess. You can bring your priestess self into all these professions.
Sure, but I don't think that was quite what the question was. Sorry, Marion. The question was about people calling themselves priestesses, which is a devotional choice, and actually we have really no say over. We have some sort of quality control in our trainings if we offer initiation or self-dedication ceremonies at an end of a particular journey, but ultimately it is not up to us, it's up to the person. And to circle back to what you said, one of the things you said is, I'm actually not worried about people trying to be me or nicking things from the courses that they've had with me and doing their own thing. The work is certainly in sacred sexuality is so important, it needs to be out there. B, I also learned from other people, many teachers, many tantric traditions, pagan traditions. So we all get our stuff from somewhere. It's the living it and the authenticity of actually being humble enough to first be an apprentice before you try to be a master of any trade. And we're talking about the trade side of priestessing here, which can have many forms. It doesn't have to be teacher or ceremonialist or healer. This can be, like Marion was speaking into, so many different forms, so many different roles, because it is skill dependent. So I quite liked your question, the jack of all trade, master of none, speaking into these traditions, really, where you had guilds, where there were apprenticeship schemes, learning journeys, where you then got the practice, which is really what we're trying to recreate with temples, or to some extent with the Goddess Conference, these opportunity places really to try things, so that you create that basis of a real lived experience, not just something you read in a book or had one little meeting with in a 2-hour workshop, a real integrated lived experience. But I also saw that, Caroline, you were trying to say something and I jumped in before you. Sorry, darling.
No, I've got something different now. Jumping on what you were saying then. I think for me, that's, and Marion, I think you kind of alluded to it, that you don't have to call yourself a professional priestess to be a priestess. You know, people who are nurses, midwives on the 𝗤𝗔𝗕𝗟𝗓 training are embodying priestess. But for me, the Goddess Conference is amazing because we get that opportunity for that time to be in this gigantic temple and to listen to all the people speaking, all, you know, the workshops and the speakers at the beginning of the day. Some of those people are just priestesses. That's what they do. They are they're professional priestess, super priestess, whatever you want to call them. Some of them are stepping into that role again with joy in their heart and taking that opportunity to take some time out away from, you know, for me, for example, I used to work in the corporate world, but for that blissful week, I could just immerse myself in this beautiful other, you know, the magic of it. And I think that for me is one of the beauties and the magic of the conference, is that you, as a participant, as a being involved, you get to immerse yourself in all of these different traditions and witness and learn and meet new people and see how they have learned and be guided by them as well. I think without having to take trainings, without having to be on a training course, you can get that little bit of an experience from them, that workshop, and then decide, actually, that really resonates with me. And that's better than any marketing for me personally, is to go there in person, to speak to people, and then have that connection. I think, was it 𝘕𝗎𝗓𝗓 that said that you'll meet the teacher, you'll write the correct teacher for you in person. And Marion, I met you in Glastonbury once, completely just, you know, unexpectedly. I went to have a reading done, I think an oracle reading, and you happened to be the person doing the reading. It was meant to be. And now here we are.
I think there are so many different sides, I mean, of what a priestess is. I mean, there, you can call yourself a priestess in any expertise, like Marion said. For me personally, and this is just something very personal, is that I think that you will know exactly when you step into your priestess archetype in complete service to Goddess, and when that is, it's like you can't do anything else but that. And I think, and I always told in the Priestess School here in Switzerland, I mean, Priestess School always, it's 3 years. And I always told them, after initiation, you can initiate in a ceremony in our class, and then your priestess path will start. But you will have your personal initiation into priestesshood when you are ready and Goddess, and you will feel Goddess in such a unique, deep way that you want to be of complete service to her. And that is something so unique and so personal. So that's that part of priestess. But there's also the other part of course, yeah, you can do years and years of training. I did years and years of training. I did years and years of training with Katinka, and I loved every second of it. And somebody who maybe only did 3 months, but that person will maybe attract somebody who just needs that expertise that she has, you know, from her. Do you understand what I mean? So I think it's really just going back, spiraling back to your authentic path and just doing yours, and trying not to get distracted on the outside. Because even if somebody doesn't have that much experience, maybe that person will, attract exactly people that are not ready yet to go onto that deep journey, you know, and needs that maybe as a jump start to really surrender into a deeper path.
to
I
integrate
wanted
on
to say. Oh, sorry.
sorry, Chris
Yeah, I wanted to reply to Chris and Lily's post about
Sure.
Jack and Jill.
He says, for who's
Jack
listening to us, Chris says, Marion, you're right. This is the same challenge in all complementary and regulated therapies. Most people take shortcuts, then offer service alongside those who did long trainings. You can't regulate priestess as such. The only quality control is your community. We have to trust that goddess karma takes care of those acting from ego shadow when they claim grand titles, which is the other side of what we were saying as well about the conference. So we trust that they will find the right person. So you will find the right person, the healer, the teacher. And then Denise actually says something that integrates this and comes to the full circle with what Caroline and Stephanie were saying, which is, could it be that being a priestess is a mindset rather than a teacher, a healer, etc.? Which is a very good point. A priestess could be doing ceremonies, could be doing activities without being necessarily a teacher or a way shower in her 30s. Maybe she will become it one day, but then she starts doing a lot of stuff. And I feel that the Goddess Conference, the way you've built it, Marion and Katinka, makes way for people to experience deep responsibility in a very safe environment, in a, let's say, in a leadership way. So the elders are in a way fostering the new priestesses, and new priestesses are allowed as well to build responsibility in a safe environment, and without the weight of having trainings or stuff to the curriculum. And there's a good mixture of that. So maybe community is the way. Sorry, Katinka, you were saying?
No, that actually ties in nicely. Thank you. I think that the community piece is important. I don't actually think it's necessarily age-related. I think somebody in their 30s can be an amazing priestess. I think it is an archetype. It's a soul part. It is a vocational, if you really live it, and not just a role that you play at different times. It has nothing to do with what then the format is in the outer world, whether that is healer or teacher or initiator or ceremonialist. Those are just the ways in which it expresses. It's something much deeper, like I think Denise was speaking into that. I liked what I wanted to just come back to, because it ties in for me with this whole thing about the learning journey, the apprenticeship journey to attain the mastership or the mistressship. I'm not so involved with the gender of these words, because really I'm tapping into something that is older, the Renaissance idea that the great minds were masters of all the major arts, and these included the sciences, yeah? So for me, this little rhyme comes in about Jack and Jill, who are the apprentices, go up the hill to get a pail of water, the deep source of knowledge, the water, the source of divine presence, the source of that craft, perhaps, yeah? And they fall down. They hit that crown. They get bumped on the head with like, hey, you're not actually on top of that hill yet. You have more work to do. And they tumble back down to actually really take that initiation journey of honing our skills. So I like that little.
Yeah, that's very good. I like that.
That goes in so nicely with this.
How great is that, Katinka? That's fantastic. That wraps up our episode today fantastically, I would say. So I would leave it with that quote, because that is just perfect, I feel, and gives the right glimpse of mystery into this. I would love to remember everyone about our event happening in a couple of months, actually. So thank you to the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful super mega priestesses from the ceremonial circle of the Goddess Conference. Again, thank you, Marion Brigantia, Stephanie Alison Schudel, Caroline Stevens, and Katinka Sutton. So round of applause.
Thank you. you.
Thank you so much to everyone. And we will see you again here next week live. And if you weren't available to join us live, please listen to this on the podcast or on YouTube. Sending much love to everyone connected today, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Bye.
The most. Thank you.